12th, 2019, regular meeting of City of Aiken Planning Commission. Let's call the meeting to order. First order of business is approval of the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the
Second?
minutes as written.
Second. All in favor, right hand, opposed, like sign. Okay. Minutes are approved. No old business on the agenda. New business application number 3A, application number 19-20018, annexation request, 517 Silver Bluff Road by Treats of Aiken. Anybody want to speak in favor of that or on behalf of that request? Anybody want to speak in opposition? Oh, come on up.
I'm sorry, I was sitting in the back.
That's fine.
I'm here on behalf of the owner out there, Treats of Aiken. My name is Brian Pelham, and I'm going to be the project engineer. I'm just more or less here to answer any technical questions if any of you have any. Essentially, they're proposing a drive-through Dairy Queen over there.
Oh, yeah.
We're not asking for anything special in that, just the fact that we want to tap the sewer and the water service. Pretty typical from what I understand.
Well, you just want to be annexed into the city for,
Correct.
and the services that the city provides
Correct.
can be available to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody questions? Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
in regards to application number 19-20018, annexation request, tax parcel number 106-16-02-028, current zoning, urban development district, proposed zoning, general business, and it is consistent with the comprehensive plan, no possible conditional approvals. I recommend that we send this to council.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. It is approved. Application 3B, application number 19-20019, annexation request on Wildwood Road by James Horch and Elizabeth Cronk Horch. Anybody wants to speak on behalf of this request? I'm going to miss them again. Anybody? All right. Anybody want to speak against this one? Okay. Yes, sir. State your name and address, please.
Edwin Hallman, 916 Wildwood Road.
Okay.
I'm not really saying I'm against, I'm just more or less asking questions. Every house in that subdivision, and I've been living, well, it's been in my family since 1951, is in the county. What are the requirements for a person to ask to be annexed into the city? Do you not have to have contiguous property?
You do have to have contiguous property, and this property is considered contiguous. It is across the street from property that is in the city. If you are directly across right-of-way, by state code, that is considered contiguous. A road can't separate contiguity.
I've done some other research that says that it can. I'm like I say, I'm not really against this. I'm more or less concerned of what effect it may have on my property in the future, because I don't have any plans to go into the city.
Currently, the city annexation policy that requires annexation says that if a new owner purchases a property that has both water and sewer and is contiguous to the city limits, that would be required to annex. So if a property does not meet one of those three requirements,
So y'all would have to put in a sewer system.
correct, sewer has to be immediately available to the property to be considered under our annexation policy currently.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Make a motion, application number 19-20019, annexation request, tax parcel number 104-17-23-012, applicant James Horst and Elizabeth Crunk Horst. I recommend that we approve this for council. It's within the comprehensive plan.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. That's passed also. Okay, item 3C, application number 19-60009, rezoning request on Silver Bluff Road by Mr. Kevin J. Bumpus. Anybody here to speak on behalf of this request?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. I am Kevin Bumpus. I have a property, 104 Silver Bluff, obviously, 6 Oakland Hills. I also have property there as well. I can tell you, my sister and I own this house together. It's been in my family. I was born in that house. It's been in my family for 40 years, maybe closer to 60, maybe. But so we've had it forever. We've rented it for many, many years, and both my father and my mother passed away, like we're all going to do. And my sister and I tried to sell the house, and we can't even give the house away. And I think due to the fact that right across the street is Salvation Army, to the left of that is Honey Baked Ham, to the right of that's a church, to the right of that's a police office. And, you know, we would just like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, do I need to do that again, or?
No, we got you.
Okay, so I've not been approached by anybody that said, hey, if you can get this rezoned, I would like to get. Nobody, there's not any of that. I'm just looking for another option on a way that my sister and I might be able to move that property.
And you're aware, Mr. Bumpus, that pretty consistently along Silver Bluff Road, that's Aiken Estates basically there, as you know, you grew up there. And it's pretty consistently along that road, all the way down there past Williams Drive, on that side of Silver Bluff, it has remained residential. And the problem that you've got is you're asking to change that designation. Now, I don't know, you know, like you say, you don't have any plans, but if you change it to LP, that's a limited, what they call limited professional, and that opens up the zoning to more than residential. You understand that?
Right, it's just like the other side of Williams Drive, on my same side of the road, all of those homes, you know, they were once residential as well.
Down past Williams.
Right, right.
I think that's probably out of Aiken Estates. That's probably not Aiken Estates. I'm not positive, but I think I'm right on that. But at any rate, any other comments?
Oh, not unless anybody has any questions for me.
Any questions of Mr. Bumpus? Okay, thank you.
There are others on the same drag that would love to have their property the same way.
You might be right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody wish to speak? Anybody else in favor? Anybody wish to? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Ed Broll. I own property at 114 Silver Bluff for the last 18 years. I have seen the properties along that street kind of decay, and I think that the option of limited professional would really help the whole neighborhood out. I think going to limited professional, you have the Aiken Estates on the back side of that. I understand that, and I don't think there'd be much of a problem for anybody that's behind those houses on Silver Bluff. So I just am for this, and I think it'd be a good use of the property.
Thank you. Anybody else?
You may want to mention from somebody who lives behind it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir. You want to speak in favor? Okay. You're the transitional figure then.
Yes, so my house is Lot 1 of Aiken Estates. It's on the corner of Silver Bluff and Kerr Drive, adjacent to the guy that wants to change.
Right across from the church and right next to this property.
Yes,
Yes,
share
sir.
about 100 feet with his property line. Anyway, I've been living there since '98, and I have probably for 15 years or more anticipated the day when my neighbor, his house, would change to limited professional, maybe get a dentist or lawyer or somewhere in there. And I thought, oh yeah, eventually I might do the same. Since I'm on a corner house, it might be more valuable, maybe. And so when I heard about this, I figured I should be here and talk about it. My negative is that I would like a privacy fence, if it's allowed for him to do that, along our border of property, a 6-foot, white vinyl property fence.
Hold the mic,
Oh,
if
sorry.
you don't mind, a little closer.
Okay. But other than that, I'm actually kind of in favor of it. I think, that, like the other guy said, it's a good use of the land. All the properties across the street from us, they're all businesses. And frankly, for 15 or 20 years, the 2 blocks down, say across where used to be the Blockbuster, and now what is it, a chiropractic place or some kind of...
Down the corner.
Yeah, on
On the corner.
At 118, I think its number is. Businesses have been changing down there, working their way up toward our part of the street. And I don't know how close they are, but it seems like they're getting closer and closer. And I've been watching it for, like I say, 20 years and anticipating the day when it would happen. That it would be, And so I'm actually in favor of it.
Okay.
So that's about all I got to say.
Okay. Questions? Anybody? Okay. All right, anybody else in favor? Anybody opposed? Yes, ma'am?
There's a traffic concern.
Huh?
Traffic concern, too.
You mean outside?
Susan Ernest, and I live in Aiken Estates, near this location. And I have concerns for the neighborhood. It is a residential neighborhood, and we'd like to keep it a nice residential neighborhood that attracts nice people. Being close to Silver Bluff, we're used to that traffic situation, and that's another issue. The traffic on Silver Bluff backs up quite frequently. People coming off Whiskey onto Silver Bluff, people coming in and out of the Salvation Army there. So you add one more thing to it, and you're going to have a lot bigger problem there. You may have to widen Silver Bluff, which I'm not real happy about that thought, in my backyard. So those are my concerns. And
You might be interested, we got, somewhere I got from Ryan or somewhere on the limited, on the traffic, there are approximately 12,500 cars a day
I don't doubt it.
on Silver Bluff.
Yeah, and from Kerr
Level of
Drive,
service numbers.
The church has Alcoholic Anonymous meetings, and so 2 to 3 times a day, they have an influx of cars there that go back out onto Silver Bluff. So I see that as an accident waiting to happen when you add to the traffic there.
Here's the issue, again, we've had several people speak in favor of it, but I think if we're going to be consistent now, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to look at the whole line of houses along that road.
Because they're in Aiken Estates. and
Because they are all
covered
in
by
Aiken Estates,
covenant in Aiken
and I believe
Estates.
in...
We have a covenant.
Yeah, there's neighborhood covenants and all that. So I believe in being consistent, so I'd like people to understand that if you do it here,
Exactly.
You're just
and my neighbor
moving down the road.
wants to also do it. I mean, you open the box.
That's right, and
We don't
people need
want
to
that.
understand that, if that's the way it's going to be
One
done.
of the oldest neighborhoods in Aiken, and we'd like to keep it nice.
Okay,
Thank you.
Ma'am,
questions?
where is your house in relation
I'm
to
on
this?
Fur Drive, 905. I'm almost in the backyard of that
She's on the
location.
corner,
On the corner?
right
Fern
here.
Wheeler.
That gentleman's there. The woman who wrote the letter is here, and she lives on that corner.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay. Anyone else wants to speak against this proposal? Yes, ma'am.
Cordine Todd from 916 Wheeler. It would be right in my backyard. And we're in a quiet neighborhood. It's been like that for a long time, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Okay. Nothing further, let's, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And may need to bring Mr. Bumpus back up to answer. I wanted to hear some comments first. In regards to the property, the real estate that's located on this lot, would it even allow for an LP designation with rear parking in the back? I mean, would that house have to be torn down? I mean, because you have to have the 10-foot buffer, plus you have to have rear parking, which...
That's a huge backyard.
Okay.
Huge level backyard. Obviously, there's no parking back there now, but there's certainly a gobs of room for parking.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of anyone? Okay, we'll have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, in reference to application number 19-60009, rezone request tax parcel numbers 106-08-07-004, current zoning residential single family and a limited professional. I recommend that we deny this request to City Council because I don't think it's within the comprehensive plan. I think that we're opening up a can of worms here that we might not need to open up.
Second.
Questions, comments on the motion? I basically agree with you. I think it may be inevitable in the long run scheme of things. It may be inevitable action, but I think if you do it here, then if somebody else 2 houses down comes in, we're going to have to do it for them. We can't just do it for this one and not do it for somebody else. If somebody comes down at the corner of Williams, we're going to have to do it for them. So I think Aiken Estates is a venerable neighborhood. It's been around a long time. I think there's plenty of places to put LP items other than here. I sympathize with the owner of the house. I understand, you know, when we make a call like this, there's two sides to the question. It is difficult to sell as a home. It does not have the same value as a home, as a residence that's placed 3 blocks back. I understand that, but you know, you have to consider the greater good. At least I do. So I concur with the motion. All in favor of the motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Can I say something?
Sure. We're in the discussion period, so say what you wish.
I agree with what you're saying, and I agree that it is good to keep residential areas residential. However, in this case, I think per the comprehensive plan, this would be considered a transitional move. Right, Ryan?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Right. It shows a mixture. The comprehensive plan doesn't go into specific detail, but it shows, yeah, essentially a mixture of office and residential uses along this route.
Right. So, in my opinion, this would be a good step in the right direction for progress because, like you said, Jack, it's probably going to happen anyway. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Everybody else want to put in their 2 cents? Okay, all in favor of the motion to deny the request, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay. Motion is carried. The application is denied. Okay, 3D. This is another rezoning request from industrial to GB on Richland Avenue East. Do I have anybody here who wants to speak in favor of this request? Okay, anybody here who wants to speak in opposition to this request? Okay, do I have a motion? Yes, ma'am.
With respect to application number 19-60010, rezoning request for tax parcel number 121-11-02-004, located at Richland Avenue East, I move that we recommend this to the City Council because it is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, opposed?
I'm not abstaining from this.
You're going to abstain?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Raymond abstains. Okay, motion is carried. Okay, E. This is consideration of a recommendation that we have to, are required to make to the City Council regarding their capital improvement program for the city for fiscal year 2019-2024. Comments? Anybody got any comments, suggestions, modifications, et cetera, regarding this plan?
As far as roads and streets, I would like to make a motion to move the Whiskey Road Corridor Congestion Relief number 5 higher in priority.
Where do you want to move it to?
I would move it to number 1, but in fairness, move it to 3.
All right. Second. Is there a second? Come on, people. No second. Motion dies for lack of a second. Any other motions? How about somebody move we approve it?
Send it to the City Council.
All right, got a motion? Anybody? Charles?
Just reading something, give me 1 second. I'll make a motion.
Good. Make it.
All right, so with respect to the city's capital improvements program, covering all of the city's departments, I move that we submit this to the city manager and the city council on the March 12th agenda. For
Second.
approval.
Second.
Okay. All in agreement with the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. We will submit it in the format and the way in which we received it as recommendation from us. 3F is this Trail of Communications request for zoning ordinance issues. That has been continued, so we will not consider that tonight. G, 3G, that's the consideration of the rezoning of the area bounded by Union Street, Park Avenue, Buford Street, and Barnwell Avenue from GB, light industrial and residential single family, to DB, downtown business. Anybody want to speak in favor of this? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Renee Stewart, owner of parcel. It's at the address of 117 Williamsburg Street Southeast.
Okay.
And the progress that could be made in that area, particularly with cleanup, and also with giving option for extended business in that area, relieve some of the business growth that are popping up in other places where it would be contiguous and also have convenience to the downtown area. So I'm speaking in favor of that motion.
Okay. Ryan, you want to make a brief comment as to why this is here?
I was going to say, yeah, Mr. Chairman, I could give some context to this actual application. So currently, the area generally bounded by Union Street, Buford Street, and then north to South Barnwell Avenue to Park Avenue. As the map depicts, most of those properties between Union Street and Williamsburg Street are zoned to general business. East of Williamsburg Street is predominantly zoned light industrial. This discussion came up as part of implementing the newly adopted comprehensive plan, which calls for a mixture of uses in this area, more traditional to the way that the old Aiken area developed. Additionally, the comprehensive plan promotes residential uses in and around downtown Aiken, which the general business district that is currently there prohibits as a standalone use. So right now, all those properties zoned general business or light industrial do not allow for single-family residences. And as kind of the map depicts and the staff report describes, many of those properties were at one time single-family homes, and there has traditionally been a smattering of small businesses, particularly west of Williamsburg Street. Now, the area east of Williamsburg Street has traditionally been light industrial. Those parcels are typically larger in nature, and you have traditionally had industrial-type uses. That's where rail spurs typically previously existed from the railroad track as it came to grade. So in order to implement the comprehensive plan, the general business zone district is more along, it's essentially the more dense version of, or sorry, the more intense version of commercial zoning that we have currently on the books. That's what you would typically find along Whiskey Road, Richland Avenue West, York Street North, those sorts of areas, Pine Log Road, and it typically promotes more commercial suburban style development. So most of these parcels within the area, particularly the general business parcels, have improvements that don't meet current setbacks, and then the residential uses don't meet residential use requirements unless there are a few of those smattering. There's 1, 2, 3, let's see, about I think 9 parcels zoned residential single family in there. There are about 45 of those parcels that we counted that were vacant in this area, and most of those are mid-block locations that previously had single-family homes. So over the several few months, about this last 6 months, through work sessions and public hearings and public meetings, we looked at what might be an appropriate zoning to replace that GB that would allow that mixture of uses. And so options would be to kind of create a whole new zone district, or to look at one of the zone districts currently in, I guess, the catalog of zone districts that are currently on the books. And the zone district that the Planning Commission looked at that felt it might best promote mixture of uses, residential uses, standalone single-family residential uses, as well as small businesses, would be the current downtown business zone district. And so that is what is being it does a couple of things. One, it has relaxed setback requirements, so a lot of the non-conforming properties that have been constructed in that area would again reach a conforming status. So, for instance, there are a number of residences that maybe have a porch or something like that do not meet the current setback requirement. If that were to catch fire, become dilapidated and fall off, due to setback requirements, a lot of those cases staff wouldn't allow those to be rebuilt. Or if like a single-family home in that area were to, say, burn down, it cannot be permitted back. Now, the big differentiation on the business side between general business and downtown business is automobile-oriented uses such as automobile sales, automobile service, drive-through restaurants. Those are kind of some of the big ones that get pulled out of the downtown business that are currently allowed in general business, not allowed in downtown business. The light industrial uses essentially it's kind of a hard line that allows essentially only light industrial uses, warehousing, very light manufacturing, like fabricating, things like that. Automobile sales, vehicle sales are in that as well. So that's kind of a whole, I guess, kind of a different discussion. The other thing that staff would note is that this is the only real concentration of light industrial property within the city limits, so that should be taken under consideration by council. So staff would recognize that area is essentially historically been treated differently, and it may be worth evaluating that a little further in the future as to whether there might be some whether that would be appropriate for a downtown business or some variation of that, if you were to go back and reconsider a mixture of light industrial and business uses. The other thing that the downtown business zone district allows, and that kind of comes with it, is currently there is a facade grant improvement program for properties that are both in the Old Aiken overlay and the downtown business zone district. And so as funds were allocated by council, a rezoning to downtown business would allow the use of those facade grant programs. That's a matching grant of, it's a reimbursement up to $10,000 for improvements that are consistent with the Old Aiken design guidelines that already applied to the area for significant work. And so that's kind of the context of this, is that the general business, particularly in this area, doesn't fit some of the goals. It actually prevents some of the goals of the comprehensive plan, particularly residential uses. And so as we examine the existing zone districts that are on the books, the downtown business generally provides for a mixture of uses, allows flexibility in terms of zoning and site development that is more traditional to this area than the general business allows for.
Could you please explain to the audience what you discussed with us about putting residences on some of these empty lots and why that's not allowed now?
Right. So currently under the general business zone district, standalone single-family homes are not permitted. So a change to downtown business zone district, and again, most of these lots were, especially interior to the blocks that don't front Richland or Park Avenue, those have essentially been platted for residential development, but as properties have been torn down over time, this general business zone district has been in place for about 18 years now. Those have not, one option that could replace it is not single-family residences under the general business district. It would have to be part of a larger commercial development, and essentially on most of these sites, the lots are small enough that that isn't a development option. So they, unless somebody were to combine several lots, then you could maybe create a commercial development that's allowed by the zone district, but right now they just sit vacant. There's roughly 45 vacant lots in the area currently.
Let me comment too, just, sometimes people get the idea that we sit up here and we look around and we think, well, we want to do this over here, or we want to change this over here. This bubbled up, I think it's fair to say, from the ground up to us. In the public meetings and the input we had, it bubbled up from the ground that there were lots of issues out here regarding single-family homes. The comprehensive plan wants to get more people living downtown. You can't rebuild homes. There was a fair amount of bubbling up from the ground, a groundswell of people who said, look at this. We'd like to make a change, or we'd like to look at something to make a change. So that's why we're doing it. We're not sitting up here and just creating this out of nothing. Just a little bit of background.
And Mr. Chairman, one thing I guess it'd be worth going over, because this is a question we commonly got in the planning department, is what if I have a use that's currently allowed that under the rezoning would no longer be allowed? So those are grandfathered in our code. If you change the zoning and a use is currently on a site that got rezoned to something that would not allow it, that use may continue indefinitely until it is no longer that use on that site for a period of 12 months. So if a use ceases to exist on a site for a 12-month period, then they lose the right to continue that use. And so anything that is a non-conforming use, so it would be allowed under GB, but not allowed under the DB, the downtown business zoning, those uses are grandfathered in unless they cease to operate for a period of 12 months. So as long as that continues, it can continue as the use on the site.
Okay. And that's commercial? Right. Not residential?
Well, it's the same with residential as well. So yeah,
like a house.
Right, a house. If a house is a house, right. So right now, for instance, the houses under this general business zone district are allowed to be used as single-family residences.
Whether anyone's living there or not.
Well, and that's the deal. If nobody is living there, if somebody ceases to live there for a period of 12 months, then it loses its ability to continue to be a single family.
That was my question.
The same applies.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else comment in favor or opposed? Mr. McCants.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I'm Clark McCants. I reside on Calhoun Place here in Aiken, but I'm here this evening in my capacity as chairman of the advisory board for your Salvation Army Corps here in Aiken. With me is Lieutenant April Tiller and her husband, Lieutenant Randall Tiller. They are your new Army Corps officers who just joined us. You can't hear me, Ed?
Yeah. Ed's got hearing problems.
And change is real good, as we all know. You kind of shifted from favor to opposed too quick. I'm here to tell you the Army is not opposed to change. It's not opposed to the concept here. It's an admirable one. We want to see that area, of course, improve. But here's the problem in our mind. And Ryan, we'll talk about the legal non-conforming use in a second. The Salvation Army has had a presence in Aiken since 1929. A shelter for truly needy people, the unfortunate individuals in all of our societies, has been in that area since 1929. Excuse me, since 1962. I'm a little off, and I'm trying to make sure I keep my facts straight. We understand with the zoning change that we would be allowed to continue to operate the shelter at Park and Sumter and Horry. As Ryan pointed out a little bit earlier, if the use for some reason were to cease for a period of 12 months, we may run into trouble. We may run into a situation where we have to have a special exception. The Salvation Army, Mr. Chairman, is very concerned about a prospect like that. The future is just what it is. It's the future. You don't know what could happen. While everybody, I think, wants to ensure that we have a shelter in this area for those in need and how important it is, we don't want to take the risk. And that's why, as you know, we've respectfully requested, by way of letter, that we not be included in the new zoning plan. Not asking to be excluded, that sounds kind of tough, but we're asking to be able to remain under the current zoning plan and not run a risk of losing the ability to operate this shelter at that location in this area where we've done so long. This is an important thing not only to the Salvation Army, it's an important thing to this community. And I don't know if you're aware of this, and I hope the audience is aware. That shelter down there, in that area, is the only shelter for the needy people in this area in Aiken County. The only one. The next thing that could be asked is, why does it have to be there? Why does it have to be in what you're going to transform into general business, the downtown area? And that's a legitimate question, and many, many cities throughout our country have struggled with that. But if you're ready, Lieutenant Randall, I'm going to let you come up here, and he's going to express that point to you and emphasize and tell you why it's important to have a shelter of this type in a downtown area. Yes, Mr. Brewer.
I just wanted to ask you, I mean, under what circumstances would you foresee the Salvation Army not being operational for over a 12-month period?
I think it would have to be a catastrophic type event.
Right.
But I'm not in the business of predicting what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true.
And we are legal permitted on that spot now. We would continue to be able to operate, as Ryan says, in that area as a legally non-conforming use. If something catastrophic were to happen, Mr. Brewer, I do not want to take that risk for the Army. It's too important. And because of future, it's just uncertain.
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I know the good work you do.
I'm going to let Randy take over. Thank you, and I'll be happy to address any other questions. And thank you for listening to me.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We wanted to come out and make sure we just stress the importance of what we want to provide. The Salvation Army is here in Aiken because we want to provide the service to the community, to those that are in need. The Salvation Army, where it is now, has been there for 62 years. Long before I got here. I just got here. And the beauty of Aiken is that it's a wonderful mix of both old and new. And the Salvation Army shelter being right where it is not just an old style or to add that flavor of old style, but it actually was something that was provided by those people that were here long before we got here, long before I got here. Those are the ones that kept the Salvation Army shelter going. Those funds that they donated opened the Salvation Army's doors there and has supported the Salvation Army till now. So now we have some grants and some different things, but originally it was supported by those who believed in providing hope for the hopeless. People know exactly where it is in this community. We have folks that come to the community and anybody can point them to the doors of the Salvation Army, and they know that Aiken wants those doors here. We have the only 24-hour, the only emergency shelter in this area. We provide services for men, women, and children without discrimination, regardless of who they may be. And it is an institution. And it's an institution that's for everyone and anyone. And all we're asking is for the opportunity to continue to serve. So if you provide us with that opportunity, we promise that we will continue to do our best to provide the service that those that fall on hard times need.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Craig Shank. I own 111 Marlborough Street and 116 Williamsburg Street. I don't believe the current request for zoning would be appropriate for my properties. I think it would limit the resale value. It would hurt my future needs of the property. Apologize. And I believe there's a need for downtown. I think we've done a great job in downtown. If this was done in a more limited scope, I think it would be a good idea. I also represent Habitat for Humanities. We're unsure whether this would be a good move for us. Our plans in the future may include making the property on Park Avenue a warehouse, which wouldn't be allowed. And wouldn't turn it into an empty building. Thank you.
You. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Peter Poulos. I live over on Sumter Street. I own property on Sumter Street. I live in Aiken on Audubon. And I'm very much in favor of the downtown business. I think it's has the potential to rejuvenate the northeast part of town. And I would also like to say, I'm an attorney, but I'm not a member of the South Carolina board. I'm a member of the Connecticut board, and sort of a retired member of the Pennsylvania board. And in hearing what the folks in the Salvation Army had to say, I'm in total agreement with them. And I think the Planning Commission and the council has within their power to grant special exceptions in any zoning proposals that they may come up with, and I think a special exemption could very well be granted to the Salvation Army, and I would ask you to consider doing that sort of thing. Anyway, bottom line, I think it's a great idea. I think you're going to rejuvenate an area that needs rejuvenation and make a difference. And by the way, I'm also very much involved with Christ Central, another organization that does a lot of work very similar to what the Salvation Army does. And I'm putting in a plug for a school that we started in Graniteville. We got approval by the Commission on South Carolina Commission on Higher Education. We are running a culinary program and a paralegal program, post-secondary schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan, can I ask you a question? So those businesses that are light industrial would remain light industrial, would, in name, unless they become vacant over 12 months, could they make improvements to their light industrial property under downtown business?
So I was just looking at that, under downtown business, so here's what it says. It says that no building, structure, premises containing a non-conforming use shall be extended unless such extension or alteration shall conform the building to building line setback, height limitations, yard, other provisions. So what that does is, on the use side, it's whether it discontinues for a period of 12 months. On the actual site development side of things, right now, most of the buildings in the light industrial area do not meet current setback requirements and site standards for light industrial uses. They would under the downtown business, so it would allow them some additional latitude to expand the building or reconfigure the building and things like that without impacting the loss of the use on the site. So the 12-month vacancy period would still apply, but it would allow them a little more leeway with building improvements or site improvements.
So they could do it?
That's right.
Would they have to come before the board to get an exception or to get a, would that be possible as well?
Regarding the...
If they wanted to, for example, if Habitat wanted to build a warehouse on the back of their property, would they be allowed to do that, or would they be able to come before planning and ask for an exception to build it as long as they met the setback requirements existing?
Let me look that up real
Trying to
quick,
cover
just
all
to make
bases.
sure.
They believe that they may use the property that they have a restore and warehouse in now as a warehouse, move the restore to a different location. And if the zoning's changed to downtown business, it's my understanding that it could no longer be, it couldn't become a warehouse.
Is that true?
So I'm just confirming, just to make sure, but...
Double checking for you.
So the other retail uses, so for instance, other retail uses in the light industrial district are allowed by special exception. Now in South Carolina code and our city code, special exceptions are only permitted by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So there are 11 conditions written into the code that we derive from the state code that if you meet those conditions, you can the Design Review Board may consider you, I mean, not Design Review Board, Board of Zoning Appeals, sorry. Board of Zoning Appeals may consider you as a use in that zone district. So that's the way retail uses in the light industrial district work. Conversely, it's also the way the Salvation Army, the shelter use, would operate within the downtown business district. So both of those are essentially it would be the warehousing, essentially, I think a part of their operation now would be warehousing, but the warehousing, yeah, would have to be a part of another allowed use under the downtown business district. So warehousing alone is not permitted under downtown business.
But a retail front.
But a retail front under downtown business or light industrial that currently are allowed.
Just as a comment as to the Salvation Army, first of all, I agree it's almost inconceivable that you would not operate it for 12 months. But in the event that something inconceivable happened and you did not operate it for 12 months, I think it is equally inconceivable that the city of Aiken would not grant you a special exception to continue operating.
Would you sign the document tonight in this?
I can sign whatever you want, and you know what that's going to mean. I'll sign anything like that, but you know as well as I'm sitting here, that's not going to mean anything. But I mean, I know Aiken. I've been around Aiken for 60 years. You know, I was here then, and I can't. Obviously, I'm probably not going to be here and not going to be ruling on that. I think that's clear, but I don't think it would be an issue.
Also, it opens up the option and the possibility that you can apply for the grant to refurbish the outside of your building.
Well, that was a part of our initial concern. When we first came here to Aiken, South Carolina, we were involved in a new building project that you may have seen over on Lawrence Road with our Boys and Girls Club. With the building being as old as it was, we actually had to bring in a structural assessment done on the building. And come to find out, we had to have some major overhauls done that stretched out the project past the deadline that we originally set for it. And so one of our concerns is with the age of our building, if we ever did have to do some renovations in order to provide the service that we do now at the same level, what if that was to extend past that original 12 months that we had planned? Would we then invest that type of money and so that we can provide that service and then not be able to reopen our doors in order to continue? That was one of our concerns.
Could you share how little money is available for this grant program?
For the what? What's he talking about?
How much money for the grant?
Oh, the grant. Was it 10,000?
So currently, again, kind of within the limited area that the downtown business, that it was under the current fiscal year, there were $25,000 set aside for it. Total. And currently where it exists in the the railroad cut to Barnwell, Union Street to Pendleton, a vast majority of businesses have that were interested in the program have exhausted the use of those funds. There's a few storefronts that are still around that would still have some eligibility, but those have kind of grown less and less over the years. And so the associated funding set aside for that has also decreased along with that over the years as demand has decreased. So I think that would have to be part of a budget consideration of council as to whether they wanted to remain at that amount based on trying to predict, you know, the interest in any expanded area.
I would like to say something.
Ma'am.
You asked what would be the
Just speak up here to the, use the mic so everybody can hear you.
Okay. I'm Lieutenant April Tiller with the Salvation Army. My passion is the shelter. My biggest concern is if we did not operate in the event that we had to do some major overhaul to the building, if we came before the council and said simply, you know, we're ready to reopen our doors, we're ready to operate as a shelter, and projectively, if downtown turns into this beautiful residential area, the cute little houses start popping up. You've got mom, dad, 3 children in the backyard of the shelter. And I have 150 people who have just recently moved to the downtown area in this room telling me I no longer want to look outside my front door and see the men and the women that go in and out of the shelter during the soup kitchen from 12 to 1 because that line is of 75 to 125 25 people we feed daily. And so obviously the shelter is a small building. We can't fit all of them in there at once, so they line up outside the door. We have 44 beds inside that shelter, meaning 44 men, women, and children live inside that building, and they're going to be told that we're not going to be able to go there anymore because they don't like the fact that they have to go to the corner because we don't allow smoking on our property, and they're smoking on the street side every 15, 20 minutes. I mean, it's a revolving door. But I'm just kind of the outside of the box thinker. So when we're coming back in here to say, you know, we had something happen, we had to do this, now we're ready to open our doors, and then I've got all these people saying, we no longer want the shelter there. And so we're just trying to prevent that from ever becoming a problem or even a question. So we're just asking that if we're in support. We know that the area needs to be cleaned up. And we know that things need to happen in downtown so that we can invite more people in. But this one little contingency really puts it really hard on the Salvation Army.
So were you to close for 12 months to do some sort of renovations, where would those people go? Exactly. So
we would really seriously have to ask the community, I mean, to open up their church doors and allow us to operate within them. Or even, I know that with the emergency management system, we've opened up emergency shelters for such an occasion when Hurricane Matthew went through here. And I think that would be, and of course we have our church on Gale Avenue, so that would be another opportunity for them as well. I mean, not that I want to say that something like that would happen, but I just can't close the door to the idea that, you know, the building may burn down, God forbid, you know, and it would take a long time for those, you know, for us to raise the funds, get the insurance, everything to happen. And if it took 12 months to rebuild that building back to where we needed it to be, then we'd have to stand before and God only knows what we'd have to discuss.
But I think if the construction had been started, then you wouldn't fall into that 12-month period, would they? I mean, you wouldn't say if the building burned down and it took them 6 months to start rebuilding, if they would be okay, yeah?
Ma'am, if you want to speak, well, please step up to the mic.
Y'all got so much to say. Help these homeless people. Help them. Y'all want to shut something down?
No.
No, I'm just saying.
No, we
How
don't.
you trying to shut down the shelter? How you trying to shut down the shelter? It's homeless people.
We are not trying to shut
But y'all
down
got a place to stay. Y'all got a place to stay. Y'all got a place to stay.
I will assure you, ma'am, we are not trying
Y'all
to shut
got all
down
this amount, all this money. Help the Salvation Army. No, I'm just saying. I am tired of all y'all. All y'all. I ain't sitting down. And while y'all up here talking, let's talk about when the police beat me up. Did y'all do anything? Did y'all help me? It don't matter. It don't matter. It don't matter. Y'all got so much to say. No, they got so much to say. Help these homeless people.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I could respond that I don't believe if there is active construction going on, that it would necessarily lose its legal, its status as that particular use under construction.
And I tend to agree with the chairman that I can't imagine the city at I understand your concerns about neighborhood changes, because I've seen a lot of things turned down because of the not in my backyard people. I understand that. But I also understand the historic significance of the shelter, and I believe the city of Aiken does too. And
Yes, sir. In the back. The guy in the back.
I've enjoyed hearing a lot from the Salvation Army people. I think they're doing a great job. But I'd like to draw an attention to the current situation of the historic neighborhood that would be that is being put in a disservice under the current zoning ordinance that it's under. I'm surprised that a lot of people aren't up here in favor of this rezoning, because it directly correlates with their best interest of being a homeowner in this area. By remaining under the GB designation, you're essentially saying that you hope that this neighborhood transforms into a corridor like Whiskey Road, and I, for one, don't want to see that happen. I don't think anybody in this room wants to see that happen. That would put out more people than it would help. The area has been zoned for general business long enough to tell that GB properties have no financial interest in building on empty lots in the area. They've had plenty of time to step forward and build GB properties in this area, and they haven't. So redesignating this into a downtown business district would allow for people to no longer have to worry about their homes being turned over into a GB resident. And I think that's something that a lot of people in this room don't quite understand. If they understood that by not changing the ordinance, you are then creating more of a problem because you cannot come back to habitate on your parcel. So by changing the ordinance, you are allowing people to recoup the funds or bring together the family in order to restore the homes that are in the current GB area that aren't allowed to. There's plenty of homes there that are on the Demo 200 queue that are going to be demolished and then potentially never be rebuilt as single-family homes again, and that's a disservice to this neighborhood. There's so many homes in there that could be transformed and reviewed, just like on Kershaw Street, that is zoned for downtown business, that is currently being turned around, but people aren't able to because once they go to tax sale, they can't be bought and turned back into single-family homes, and I think that's a crime, just to see all these empty lots and boarded-up homes where people have the intention, the money, and the mindset to restore the homes. They get to the door and realize that they're bidding on a property that could never be turned back into a home. So I think a lot more people need to understand that as part of this.
Yeah, we understand that very well, and
sure.
As I said, we're not acting on our own here. We're acting on a request by people in this area to the extent that we can.
I would say that my suggestion is not towards you. I would think you guys would know more than
We
anybody.
are not trying to shove something down people's throats.
Right.
We're trying to respond to what we perceive as a need in the community as brought to us by the community members.
Right.
Now, that may not be the way it's coming across, but I assure you, we have no desire sitting up here to jam our theories onto anybody.
Right.
We're responding to quotes and comments and public input that we got, such as yours.
Well, and the other thing that I'd like to bring about is the fact that I think a lot of this area has been just neglected by property enforcers and code enforcers just because of the sheer amount of non-conforming properties in this area. So, I mean, how can you fix one issue if it's already non-conforming? Going and putting some sort of placard on somebody's door saying your grass is too high, well, it doesn't matter because the house isn't supposed to be a single-family property to begin with. It's supposed to be a drive-through or a tire shop. So, you know, to say that this neighborhood is neglected is an understatement. I mean, these people are not being served properly because, you know, there's so much misinformation on this campaign that, you know, people can't even see that you're just trying to bring it back to what it is already. So I think people should.
Thank you for your comments.
Sorry, could we get your name for the record?
Judah Londo, 123 Jasper Street.
Can I add one more thing? Just
Yes, sir. Mr. Salvation Army man. Mr. Randall.
I just wanted to clarify that that this board has always been supportive to the Salvation Army. I know many of the folks here and have had the opportunity to be greeted and welcomed. So I just don't want the wrong idea to get out that this board is in any way trying to harm the Salvation or trying to close the Salvation down. That's not the intention that we were trying to get across at all. We simply wanted to bring.
You understand it?
Okay.
I appreciate it, and I understand. Look, I didn't. You brought to me an issue that I was not aware of.
Okay.
So, thank you for that. Yes. Yeah, Clark, you want to say something else?
And the back's going to walk out the door.
Randy, in my heart, I know that you have no intention of affecting the operations. We're just being cautious. just to go back around to what our point is, we've placed in front of you a request to, as you consider rezoning, just don't include us, not exclude us, just don't include us. And Ryan, you made the comment about spot zoning in the work session. I've done a little bit of that area. You may have to look into it, Mr. Chairman, but I think if you're broadening the scope of zoning and don't include a parcel, that's not spot zoning. If you've got an existing, want to pick out a particular parcel and treat it differently, that's a little more dangerous.
BB broadening the scope. I agree with that comment.
Yes, I would say in general, DB broadens the overall broadens the allowed, the permitted uses on a site.
Okay.
I think you simply upon motion, based on what you hear, do it with the exception of including our parcel. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir. He had his hand up a while back.
Good evening. My name is Sean White. I live at 724 Park Avenue Southeast. I actually live on the property that I own. My wife and family moved there in 2011.
Use the mic, please, sir. Please, sir.
sorry
They can't hear you in the back.
Yeah, so my family and I moved into the area in 2011. We like living there. Think that the Salvation Army is an asset to the Aiken community. And as a homeowner in this area, I support the change in zoning. And I ask all of you to vote from a balanced perspective. I saw some of the letters in the packet from some of the business owners in the area, support them. But I think a balanced perspective in terms of the potential good that could come, eventually evolve out of this for this part of Aiken. Myself, my neighbors, other homeowners that I know and property owners in the area, I think would benefit from that. So thanks for your consideration.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear from you because we felt like there was some substantial support for the change. So that's why we're doing it. That's why we're considering it. Okay, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Katie Lipscomb. I live at 307 Cherbourg Place, but my business is on the corner of Orion Park, right next to the Salvation Army. I've been there for
Use the mic, Ken. Microphone. You got to pick it up. You got to hold it. You got to hold it.
Hold it, sorry.
That was better, yeah.
My business, whoa. My business is right next to the Salvation Army. I've been there for a year. They're excellent neighbors. I'm all for them staying there. And I have a copy of the use table. What are they classified as?
It's in their institutional use.
So it's not like a group 2 home or?
Correct. Yeah, it falls under our institutional uses under the description of land uses.
Okay, so that's why I didn't understand that. I'm interested in the light industrial part of this conversation. I feel like the world has changed, and light industrial these days might have a different definition. There's more internet fulfillment businesses now than there are retail businesses. We need more warehouses and sales front areas. So I feel like we really need to concentrate on light industrial property because I think it's jobs. In this neighborhood, it's jobs that people can walk to. I do have one big concern, and since I live in this and work in this area, we are in a food desert. And in light industrial, restaurants are not allowed. So I almost feel like we need to look at light industrial and say, how can we improve that so we can encourage jobs and make a live, work, play area? Because otherwise, all those people that are working there are starving, and it would be nice to just be able to walk and get lunch and not have to go downtown and spend an hour and a half trying to get lunch. It's not working out. The only person that delivers down there is Jimmy John's. So, the other comment I have about the Salvation Army is that the smoking thing, we smoke on my front porch. I understand that y'all don't smoke on your property, but we do have a parkway plan, and if the parkways were improved in this area, then there's places for people to sit and enjoy themselves during the day. So I think it'll only improve this area. I'm excited about this change. I think we've needed it for a long time. And peaceful coexistence where a rising tide lifts all boats and businesses have affordable retail services. The other thing that's missing that I would love to see is where you could live in the house and have a small shop in your backyard, like an accounting business or...
Live upstairs, business downstairs.
Yes, and I'm not sure that, I can't read the code enough to know if that's allowed or not, but that's just a consideration that I'd like to see if it's in there.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. In the back there. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, I don't know your name, so I can't call your name, but. Oh, okay, yeah, you're good.
This one?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Loria Ann Moore, and I had moved in with my mom, Mary Brunson, in this 517 Stops Lane. And my concern was like, I reckon like Salvation Army was talking about, because I had put in a lot of money into my, well, I had my mom's old fence and stuff torn down. And it's like he was saying, like something catastrophic happens and next thing you know, everything is messed up. But what happened is that one old tree that was in kind of side of the house, it came down just like that, just a flip. And it knocked the whole, where I had all the fences and stuff put up and stuff like that. It just came just like that. A storm just came up just like that, a small tornado, and it just tore everything down.
Right.
And, for weeks, nobody could go up through that way. And then it also, when that tree came down, it also pulled up roots and stuff, old roots and stuff, and it messed up the water line and plumbing lines. It messed up a whole lot of stuff because the city had to come in. It wasn't just stuff that I had to fix. But the railroad also has a part of the land. Everything is just not steady. Everything, you know, it runs into also the railroad. So what part would the railroad, you know, play into the part of the city for the downtown, when you're talking about from the L1 residential to the DB business? And what part, you know, how much, I mean, taxes would go up a whole lot more, you know, and stuff like that.
Well, I don't think this will have a lot of ramifications in the tax world.
Okay.
So now, where is your house located? I couldn't understand.
Well, it's almost across the street from almost where the Salvation Army.
The address?
517.
517.
Stops Lane. It used to be Park Avenue, but it's part of that area.
Yeah.
The Salvation Army is across the road.
Behind Giles Park or the little...
It's right in front of the where the railroad.
It's south of the railroad tracks, across.
Across the road. Yeah. And I know part of the railroad, because we've had to deal with the railroad.
So, you know, if that
railroad.
if that tree had fallen on your house and ruined your house, you know that the way it's zoned now, you could not have built your house
Well, so,
back.
no, just to correct, she is not included in the area under consideration.
I think she's out of it.
She is out of it adjacent, so this would not be a proposed change to that zoning on.
Yeah, because I had came up here with meetings and stuff with different variants.
You understand, you're not in this change.
Okay, because that's what I was wondering, and then also I know we've had to deal with the railroad a lot, you know, over
We don't mess with the railroad.
But we have to, so that's why I was wondering, you know, what part.
They're a bad group to mess with.
I know, and I don't like to deal with them either, but we have for years, but that's what I wonder, you know, what part all that would play with the rezoning. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, you want to say something, Mr. City Manager?
Good evening. I just would like to say I've answered several questions privately and tonight, and over the last couple of weeks, and I've heard comments allude to this with regards to the taxes issue and the zoning will, in terms of the current tax bills that current residents, and again, they're speaking in the context of individuals that have lived in the house for many years, elderly and so forth, that the zoning should have minimal impact on their tax bills, because between homestead exemption, the policy of city council to take a look and be very cautious with the millage rate, and also the legal triggers that are in place for the millage in terms of reassessment, how the values of the houses are determined, that the taxes for folks in those categories that should have negligible effect. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come on up.
How you doing, sir?
Good.
My name is Ray Sean Blunt. I stay at 517 Richland Avenue,
Okay.
523. The property has been in our family over 125 years.
Good grief.
We still on that property. I had something that was real concerning to me that he said that about the people not staying in the house. Just because a house looks like no one stays in it, they may stay in it. See, I have cameras around my house over there. So I see when the code enforcers, like this man said it was kind of lax. Code enforcers is not lax.
Yeah, there's a great
They're not
opinion
lax.
on that. You're right.
And the thing what I'm trying to say is, just because you don't see somebody in a house that may look abandoned, doesn't mean they're not looking at you and they're not in it. I stay in my house because I have to work. We pay over almost $7,000 in taxes a year. That's city and county. So you know I'm kind of a little bit vexed on that. We used to have the Coco Cabana building. City does enforce codes. So my thing is, I don't want the taxes to go up no more. And just remember, just because you don't see somebody in the building, don't mean that they don't stay there.
Here we know.
We know that. I seen plenty people come up through my yard and stuff. I sit in the house because I'm a person that don't like coming out. I have to work to pay them $7,000 worth of taxes.
That's right. That's right.
So you won't see me. So just be mindful of people's property when you say it's empty. Because sometimes what you think is empty is not empty. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blunt.
Just say, yeah, I would just respond to that. Yeah, in this area, we have not disallowed somebody to continue to use a single-family homes in the 2.5 years I've been here. There's a number of ways that you can prove continuous use of that residence. It's only you kind of have to go above and beyond to prove that somebody isn't living in a residence to be able to disallow that use. So, but again, this zone change would rectify that situation. It wouldn't be a question anymore. That would be able to maintain a house.
Yeah, with the zoning change, you're going to be even more safe in your house than now. It's the light industrial businesses that are going to be.
Okay, comments?
Yeah. Do you have another question?
I was trying to hear what she was saying.
I just said that with this.
I done tried 101 times.
With this zoning change, it's going to be put an extra layer of safety for residential properties.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you have a residential property, this is only going to benefit you. It's not going to do anything to change what you have.
But what I just found out was in October, y'all changed about the boarding up the houses.
I have nothing to do with that.
That's what I was told.
That's not us.
It's not us.
It's in a letter to me, so I had to go and check
That's
it
not
out.
us.
But my windows was boarded up to keep the people from trying to break in my house because I have expensive stuff. But it's not where you can see it from the street.
What's that address?
And I have no trespassing on my lot, so I'm still trying to figure out what people still coming up in my lot for with no trespassing signs.
Well, you don't need to be saying you got valuable things.
Well, hey, I do.
Don't do that.
I do have cameras up, and I do have a friend that's sitting there with me. So I don't mind. I would enjoy somebody walking through the door.
Coming without knowing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blunt. Anybody else? We need to move on. Yes, sir.
My name's Daniel Zelinsky, and I own a little small portion called Orangeburg and Park called Park Avenue Bowling Center. Okay, unfortunately, it had damage through storms in 2013. It has been vacant 5 years, and there's going to be an exception to get me to open back up. Because, you know, there's still equipment in the business, and there's also, I still pay taxes, I still have a business license. All that's been kept up since I've been down for 5 years. And my concern is getting back up to open up business. And I do support the DB, right.
You want to comment on that, Ryan?
So, yeah, because the business has been vacant and there hasn't been, I say we'd have to look to see if there have been different construction or remediation activities taking place over the course of that time. But if it hasn't for a period of 12 months, it would likely it would either benefit from this zone change proposal by allowing it by right, or it would have the opportunity to come under a special exception through the Board of Zoning Appeals as the light industrial zoning. So those are kind of the two avenues that can restart operation.
Right. As I say, Aiken doesn't have a bowling center, and a lot of people in here know me. I've been around Aiken since '66. My parents owned that business in '71, so I've been running it ever since. And Aiken needs something for the kids on that side of town would be a benefit too.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, comments? Okay. Hearing nothing further from the audience, how about a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
There are a couple of changes I want to make to this, but I do want to make a motion to change, to recommend to council that we approve the recommendation. However, I do want to potentially move the corridor from the east side from Beaufort Street to Williamsburg and eliminate the LI portion of this until we have some further discussion, and really to look at it from a holistic standpoint from case studies, et cetera.
Okay.
I don't think in this particular process we've given enough emphasis of what the LI could or could not be, and the emphasis that it could change in that area. So I do want to move Beaufort Street to Williamsburg Street, so it would still be from Barnwell to Park, but our parallel. The second one would be to exempt the Salvation Army from this request.
And so those would be addresses 600 Park and 604 Park. They're the two parcels would be a good way to reference those.
600 Park and 604.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that right? That's y'all's addresses, 600 and 604?
Yes. Okay. All right.
Because it's two parcels in one building.
Gotcha. So that would be my request or motion to approve. So basically, it would be looking at item number 3 from the Planning Commission action.
Application regarding application number 1960-011, right?
Correct.
And your motion is, and I'll try to restate to make sure we got it, approve the zoning change to DB, redrawing the boundaries on redrawing the western boundary to come down Williamsburg. Eastern boundary, I'm sorry, eastern boundary to come down Williamsburg, and exempting specifically, leaving it in their current zoning, would leave them where they are currently.
And I think the better wording here would be exclude.
That's right. Exclude? Exclude. Which would leave them in effect zone where they are now, GB.
Yes.
So, Tim.
Okay, is there,
Which
is
side
there,
of Williamsburg? Which side of Williamsburg?
The west side. Or
The west side, so that,
Closer to
the
downtown.
farmer's
Closer to
market, so that
downtown.
the farmer's market is excluded too.
okay, that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. All right, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? 2. All right, motion passes.
And if I understood that right, that also included a referral back to have a further discussion about the light industrial property at a future planning commission meeting.
Correct.
That's correct.
Correct. All right, motion for adjournment. So moved. Second? All in favor? We're good.